I did feel bullied by my pediatrician. The guilt, the shame, do you want your child to be at risk of death? And I feel like as parents, we have a right to mitigate the risk. When I would ask questions, well, how fatal is this disease and how likely is my child to get it? And if she has a strong immune system, what are her chances? I was laughed at. You know, it's either you do it or you don't do it. And if you don't do it, you're shamed.
So do any of you believe that the schedule right now is too aggressive for children?
I don't think it's aggressive. I'm only speaking from my own experience. I can't speak for anyone else. We've been on the schedule. I feel fortunate that my daughter's okay. My daughter's healthy, like God willing. I trust it right now. I do from my own experience.
The thing that breaks my heart, like I hear your love for your daughter, but the thing that breaks my heart is that she had a perfect immune system. The vaccines do not boost it. So that is misinformation.
In fact, it compromises it.
That, from my perspective, hearing you, I'm hearing all the misinformation coming right out of you. You've bought into the misinformation system. And you and I have something really big in common. Our kids are both vaccinated and they're fine. You know, we don't have this experience that these have had, but I just hear that misinformation. I just wanted to share with you on that.
Few topics spark as much emotions as vaccines, especially when it comes to our children. Today, we bring together pro-vax moms and anti-vax moms for a raw, honest conversation. With trust, science, and fear on the line, can these mothers move past judgment and start building a bridge towards understanding? I'm your host, Dr. Michelle Daff. Let's get into it. Hey friends, let's talk really quick about something that could seriously change your life if you were to ever get hurt. When you're seriously injured, whether it's a car accident, a slip, a fall, or something totally unexpected, your case could actually be worth millions. But here's the catch. Some insurance companies love to lowball you, like insultingly low. That's where Morgan & Morgan comes in. They are America's largest injury law firm with over 1,000 attorneys across all 50 states. And they've been fighting for regular people for over 30 years. This is not your average law firm. Just listen to this. They recently won $12 million in Florida. That's 34 times more than the insurance offer. $26 million in Philadelphia, 40 times what was originally offered. And $6.8 million in New York. Again, way more than the insurance company wanted to pay. That's real money that changes lives. Prior results do not guarantee a similar outcome. And here's the best part. It's 100% free unless they win your case. No upfront costs, no risk. Just real legal help when you need it the most. So if something happens, do not wait. Protect yourself. It only takes a few minutes to see if you even have a case. Did you know that you can start a claim with America's largest injury law firm in just a click? It's so easy. You can head over to www.forthepeople.com/DAFShow or just click the link in the description. Morgan & Morgan, for the people.
Hi, I'm Daniela Bloom. Knowing what I know now, I am anti-vax.
Hi, I'm Devin Edge, and I'm anti-vax.
Hi, I'm Tracy, and I am pro-informed consent, actually.
I'm Desiree Townsend. I was pro-vax, went anti-vax, and now I'm pro-vax again.
I am Heather Simpson, and I was anti-vax, and now I am pro-vax, just with a lot of anxiety.
I'm Ebony, and I'm pro-vaccine.
I'm Caitlin, and I was originally anti-vax, and now I'm pro-vax.
Thank you. And the first prompt is, I felt scared that I made the wrong decision for my child. Okay. Maybe someone on this side.
One of my children got the vitamin K shot at birth. The doctor told me it was safe and effective and they would prevent blood clots. Immediately after, fluid appeared in his brain and they said it should go away. About when he became a year old, he started having seizures, and that's when they found out he had arrested hydrocephalus. And I put 2 and 2 together when I saw on the vitamin K box that it says can't affect the blood-brain barrier. And basically the heavy metals and the toxins in the vaccine made his head swell up really big, and his head is bigger than an adult, but it's arrested. So thankfully he doesn't need a shunt, but he's one of 6 children, the only one that got vitamin K, and he has permanent arrested hydrocephalus and epilepsy from the vitamin K shot.
I'm sorry to hear that. One of 6 of your children? That he's the only one who got the shot?
The only one.
And that shot is given at birth?
They offered at birth, and I was pretty much coerced into getting it because I said I didn't want any, and they said, oh, just give the vitamin K shot. It'll help prevent blood clots. And thankfully he's okay now, but his head is still the same size. He still has the fluid in his brain, and I'm here to raise awareness.
Thank you for sharing that. Does someone on the side want to speak to that?
When you looked at the label, or the black box warning, I think is what there is, what ingredients do you feel were the causes? You said heavy metals.
Heavy metals, there's aluminum, there's different things in there. The child's brain doesn't, I think, finish forming till about like 2 years or so, roughly, maybe a little bit longer than that. And it's more susceptible to retain the heavy metals in the vaccines. Every child's different. Some people are lucky. And also, too, they're not properly regulated. So there could have been more heavy metals in his particular batch. It varies. They don't really regulate it like they say. So I didn't see the black box warning until after the fact. If I saw it before, I wouldn't have got it.
Well, and it's the black box warning is, I think, for like when you're feeding, or not feeding, but like IV, a different way giving it. So I don't think it would have been necessarily for the shot. But how long after was it that he had?
The fluid appeared on the brain immediately, and I had ultrasounds every single appointment up until he was born, and there was no fluid on his brain. He was perfectly fine, 9 pounds, 3 ounces. Immediately after he got the shot, fluid appeared on the brain. He had an ultrasound the day before I was induced, and there was no fluid in his brain. So there's no ifs and buts about it. That's the cause.
Like right away it happened. Holy.
Does anyone else want to speak to that, to the prompt?
My son was doing fine up until his 18-month shots. I got them all at once. The doctor said, we don't have to do it all at once, Mom. But at the time, I was like, yeah, go ahead and do it, because I saw no reactions happen to my other kids. So he did it, and my son started slowly getting drowsy, had a fever. But I'm thinking, oh, this is just the reactions from the shot. It's fine. I get home, and I'm like, Ali, you okay? He's dozing off and just acting weird. He started acting a little slow. I left it alone, and my son noticed that he stopped talking. So by the time he turned 2 years old, he went from 1 year old talking to not talking at all at 2 years old. So I'm like, what happened when he got his 18-month shots? I talked to a whole lot of other moms. All of our kids have autism. And they said it happened at the 18-month shots that they got. And 3 years old, barely talking. And he was talking fine before the shots. So it's something ain't right, and I knew it, so that's how I feel. I feel like I made the wrong decision.
I'm sorry about that.
It's horrible. So when the scamdemic started, I'm a lawyer, and I empowered people to stand up for their parental rights. And I would hear stories like this. I wasn't living in this world. I lost the fight. My daughter's vaccinated. But for the grace of God go I, because these stories brought up a memory in me, and it's so vivid. My daughter was the kind of child that she was crawling at 6 months, walking at 9 months. She's facing this way. She's always happy. And then one day she just stops and she's lethargic, and she's just we took her to the hospital, and they put her in these contraptions, like in a medieval thing, and they couldn't get the IV in, and they couldn't find anything. And I hate hospitals to this day because of that. And I went and I looked at the vaccine schedule, and it was right after that. But for the grace of God go I. And I just, my heart goes out to you guys. If I had a baby today, no way. What I know now, no way. So.
Has anyone ever felt pressured by the pediatricians to give vaccines to your children?
I would say I've felt pressured because when I was growing up, I was always told that healthcare providers receive kickbacks for certain vaccinations, especially if they're new. And my parents were very anti-vaccine. And there was one particular vaccination that I did not receive, which affected me later in life. And if I would have had that vaccination, I would have been okay. And so as far as my son's concerned, I don't mind them giving him vaccines because it has prevented a lot of illnesses, and I can't control which parents send their kids to school if they're sick, if they're from another country, if they're just visiting for the school year. I have no control over that. My goal is, and I would assume all of our goals here, are just to keep our children safe and protected in the best way possible that we can. My thing is, because I'm not in healthcare, I just don't want to be in the room when he gets vaccinated. So I've learned to trust them and to just try to do my best and what's best for him. Why don't you want to be in the room? I'm too scared. When he was a baby, he would cry, and I was like, I can't, it breaks my heart. Like, it scares me a little bit to see needles in a baby, and I don't know what's in them. So as long as I can step out of the room and I don't have to watch that, then I just trust that he'll have something in his body to strengthen his immune system and to keep him safe from whatever other kids may be bringing to school.
Can I add to that? So I agree with you to the extent of wanting to do what's best for our child. I don't completely trust doctors, to be really honest, but I am pro-vaccine just because I want to protect her, to ensure that she has a type of health with longevity. And I think for me, having a parent that's from another country, comparing like different health systems and what other countries don't have in regards to investments, it's kind of the reason why I'm kind of like pro-vaccine. It's because like I live in this country, I have access to things that some kids don't have. And so I don't have a blind trust, but I just feel like I'd rather just get the vaccine since it's like a common thing that we're accustomed to. But I'm not gung-ho about it. I completely understand the differences, and I feel awful about bad experiences. But I wonder, are the bad experiences the small percentage of the risk? And I don't know.
So you're saying that because you feel like you're privileged to live in this country, whatever they're doing must be probably what's best.
Yeah.
In a sense.
Yeah, exactly.
I see. Why are you
Okay, so I am known as a flu shot cheerleader. So back in 2009, my story, it looked like I had a vaccine reaction, but it ended up being more complex than that. So I have an autoimmune disease, but my story kind of propelled the anti-vaccine movement through Jenny McCarthy and Jim Carrey at the time. Basically used it to, these anecdotal stories to fuel the anti-vaccine movement. And so that's the frustrating piece. Like, you give these compelling stories, but the problem is nobody from the pro-vaccine side is researching this. Like, this needs to be researched. Somebody needs to look into what happened and figure out, okay, if it is a vaccine reaction, how can we fix this? Or at least identify at-risk children, genetically, whatever it may be, so this doesn't happen again. So from my perspective, what happened, I worked in communications at that time. I was dismissed by doctors. I went through this horrible, medical community with this air of superiority. I don't trust doctors, so I went back to school, studied biochemistry and molecular biology to actually understand the mechanisms behind this. And what I see is a vaccine program that is so pro-vaccine that they're not even willing to look into the science of these reactions, to at least acknowledge people on the other side and make them feel safe. And then her and I, we've known each other for a while and we've been talking about this. Not many people realize this, but the technology for vaccines is probably 60, 70 years old. Would you be putting your kids in a car from 60 years ago with no seatbelts? Well, that's what the vaccines are right now. And talking to people like Dr. Paul Offit, he agrees there needs to be technological evolution. I don't think the COVID vaccine was really it. There needs to be research into making vaccines safer to address these concerns. And that's where I think there's this big disconnect between the pro and anti-vaccine movements. We're not fighting against each other. We're fighting against this establishment that refuses to change anything. And so I'm here to try to tell everyone, pro and anti, let's get together and let's go after these people. Let's go after the pharmaceutical companies who refuse to change their formulations after 60 years. Let's go after the government who keeps buying their shitty vaccines so that they will be incentivized to make them better. And let's go after the insurance companies who won't allow you to give only one vaccine in a visit. So a lot of parents have to go and give 20 vaccines in a visit because their insurance company won't let them do otherwise. So sorry, that is my rant, but I think we're all on the same side. We all want kids to be healthy, and this is how we do it. We fight together, we don't fight separate.
This has been done. There's a doctor, I wish I could remember his name, great podcast. During COVID, he sold a couple of his companies for billions of dollars, and he developed a vaccine that he gave to himself. He tested on himself.
Dr. Robert Malone?
No, that raised your T cells, and it basically. And I'm not a medical professional, but it raises the warriors that fight the bad things in your body, and so your body does it naturally. So it's been done, and he's using his own money because he didn't want to be compromised by pharma, right? So it's been done.
So why can't the government fund more research like that?
Well, it's happening. Thank gosh we have RFK on board now. Going back to the earlier discussion, I did feel bullied by my pediatrician. The guilt, the shame, do you want your child to be at risk of death? And I feel like as parents, we have a right to mitigate the risk. When I would ask questions, well, how fatal is this disease and how likely is my child to get it? And if she has a strong immune system, what are her chances? I was laughed at. You know, it's either you do it or you don't do it. And if you don't do it, you're shamed. And we have a right to ask questions as parents. Since 1989, where children were only required to get 12 vaccines, today it's 54. And we can't ignore that almost every family today has a child either on the spectrum, with a learning disability, ADHD. We need to be able to ask questions. And there is alignment with us wanting accountability from Big Pharma, who are driving these studies, who don't make it possible to sue them, who have pediatricians not encouraging dialogue. And we have a lot of alignment as parents today. All of my children were vaccinated. We were on the extended schedule, but knowing what I know now with the heavy metals and these adverse reactions, and COVID vaccine is an excellent example. Why are children required to take the COVID vaccine? Even if a child were to get COVID, it is not fatal. Even to this day, no child has even passed away in America because of COVID. So why are all of our children forced to get a COVID vaccine when they have far more risk for vaccine injury than COVID itself?
Can I ask, is that actually, obviously I don't have children, is that mandated,
No,
COVID?
it's not.
It's
It's on the new recommended schedule.
Oh, I see.
But it's not
Yeah.
FDA. There is no FDA-approved COVID injection. They created a brand called Comirnaty, and it's not manufactured in the United States. So, and it's actually against federal law to vaccinate. It's because under federal law, it's called emergency use authorized. It's experimental, and when something's experimental, it's illegal to experiment on a child. So everybody who's given children a COVID vaccine, breaking federal law. So no, it's not mandated. No, it's not on the current schedule. No.
But they're pushing for that.
Not under Trump. They won't.
Well,
There's
not
no
under
way.
Trump.
Not under.
God willing, Trump is in office.
It has to be
you know.
FDA approved, and it's not.
Yeah.
It's not.
But they've tried in California specifically to mandate it, especially to get an education.
Yeah, that was more just people who thought they had to mandate masks and mandate the vaccine and mandate this. There was never any legal mandate of any of it.
So do any of you believe that the schedule right now is too aggressive for children?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. On this side, do you feel like it's too aggressive? You think it's fine in terms of the?
I agree with. I think it is too aggressive,
it's
even
too
from a pro. I think
you
it's a lot.
I don't think it's aggressive. I'm only speaking from my own experience. I can't speak for anyone else. We've been on the schedule. I feel fortunate that my daughter's okay. My daughter's healthy, like God willing. I trust it right now. I do from my own experience.
So when you've gone in for your appointments, have you ever said, okay, I think 4 is too much this time. Can we just make it 3?
I have questioned, like, do we have to have that many right now? I'm always with her. I don't want her to feel traumatized by the experience and thinking my mom left me to get these painful injections, because it is an uncomfortable experience. But I also, part of accepting this system, unfortunately, is helping her build trust in her doctor. And I'm not saying blind trust. I'm not saying whatever they say is right, because there's absolutely a justification to get a second opinion or see another doctor. And quite frankly, like, I know from like lived experience and even with race, like there are people, and there's a lot of people who are like, I need to see a doctor that looks like me for me to have that trust, just because of the historical events that we have experienced from a lot of injustice from racism in healthcare. So just that all mixed, I've gone with the schedule and we've been okay, but that's just from my experience.
And the next prompt is, I believe the government should never mandate vaccines. Okay.
It recently has been discovered that there's never been any studies that prove them to be safe and effective. There's been also a study, which I wish I had a hand, but I don't. The cause and effect, like, there's a lot less likely to die of an illness than you are to get a reaction from vaccines. And there was a doctor, Dr. Fan in Taiwan, I believe it was, no, Vietnam. He said that before Bill Gates came to his place, autism was almost non-existent. After Bill Gates introduced the vaccine program to Vietnam, I believe it was, 300% up, the autism rates went up. And before, it was almost non-existent. And this is something that needs to be noted. We cannot trust them when doctors get incentives. For every vaccine they push, they get paid for it. So to just blindly follow the Tuskegee experiments, another example, they were infecting airmen with syphilis and telling them they could have free health insurance and all this great stuff. They had a cure for syphilis and continued to let these people suffer and die. Every illness has a patent except for common cold. That means the government created every single illness and used us as guinea pigs. And that's why it's so important to know history. You just blindly follow, but a lot of these doctors, they don't know that Rockefeller corrupted the medical system during the Great Depression. They just go what they're taught in books. So never ever trust a doctor that has not had some holistic training as well. You have to read outside the box. You can't just study Western medicine and expect that you're going to be 100% healthy, because you can look at how autism has increased with the vaccines, and it's something that everybody needs to look into. You can't just say, I trust your doctor, because you're just a number to them. They get paid to vaccinate.
When I switched to Pro-Vaccine, and it was a slow experience, but, and like I said, I'm anxious about it. I met a lot of doctors and I found out they don't make that as much as I originally thought they made per vaccine. Sometimes it's almost like losing money, because they have to figure out how to refrigerate. I know in Texas, it's different. We had a freeze and they lost a lot of money because the refrigerators went out. I mean, what I do know is that I go around and talk to people, people in politics, medical professionals. I was caught in an elevator with Dr. Pan one time. That was wild. I was like, oh my gosh. But I tell them, hey, y'all guys don't know what anti-vaxxers know. Y'all don't know anything. All y'all say is vaccines are safe and effective. They're laughing at you. You gotta know what polysorbate 80 is, what aluminum is. I mean, y'all know what aluminum is, but y'all have to know why they think that, and then be able to, on a cellular level, explain why that's not true. And you can't get away with how it was in the 90s by saying vaccines are safe and effective and just, like, believe me. So I wrote an ebook on this that dives into it, but I'm like, you gotta know this stuff.
So let's talk about like COVID-19. During COVID-19, the guidelines from experts changed frequently. Do you see that as a sign of evolving science, or a sign of incompetence or dishonesty? Like, what are your thoughts on that?
Oh, yes.
Okay. Especially if you really have an opinion.
I was right in LA, where I feel like it was the epicenter of this discussion. Absolutely incompetence, and it was politicized. I was part of the movement with parents who fought with PERC, where LAUSD specifically was saying children 5 and up must get all the doses of the COVID vaccine in order to attend school. So I'm a taxpayer, and I won't have a choice to give my child an emergency experimental vaccine where I'm not even afraid of them getting COVID. But you want to force me to give my child 3 vaccinations for an education. Now, luckily, we were able to move this requirement from October of the beginning of the school year to December. And what happened in December? Everybody got Omicron. And they said if you got the vaccine, you wouldn't be able to transmit it, you wouldn't be able to get it. So they did not have a case. So because of that, they removed that requirement. But it took a bunch of mama bears and papa bears to ensure that our children were not forced a vaccine, an experimental vaccine, to get an education. And back to the CDC question, yes, masks worked, masks didn't work. I mean, the contradictions of Dr. Fauci alone. And then LAUSD in particular, they used the CDC to close the schools. But then when the CDC said the children should be back in school, LAUSD, the teachers union, said, no, it's not safe. Only the privileged want to come back to school, and made it a whole political thing. And that's why it just aids in more and more mistrust. And the damage of shutting down children from locking them down where they didn't have any social interactions, they're still behind today academically. The mental health crisis is far more of a real factor than COVID was itself. And I hope the CDC has learned from this.
Can I interject? So just coming from, somebody who's more pro-vaccine, I have to agree. I think it was a complete incompetence on the handling of that. And so when you're in a pandemic, there really needs to be one solid messaging, and I felt like the government completely botched that entire thing and mismanaged it. And yeah, I don't think they were as upfront as they should have been on the clear science behind the masks and on the science of the RNA technology, for instance. So her and I were discussing, not a lot of people understand why they use the RNA technology, but I used to work in biotech, and understanding the RNA tech, they've been trying to use that for like 20 years to change proteins in your body for people who weren't born with a particular protein, right? So you're not born with a protein. They've been trying to use that RNA technology to permanently change proteins, but it's never worked permanently. It's short term. So in order to cover the pharmaceutical companies, in order to cover their billions of dollars in R&D costs that have just gone down the drain because they've never been able to use it, they're like, let's use it for the vaccine, then the government will pay us for all the R&D we've already done on this. So that, I believe, is the real reason you even saw that tech in the vaccines, is because they were bleeding money on trying to use it to actually change people's proteins. So they decided, let's use it in vaccines. That way we're guaranteed to paid out by the government.
Well, it's money motivated. And
right.
when Dr. Robert Malone, one of the inventors of the mRNA vaccine, says children should not be having this vaccine, and then he's deplatformed, that doesn't help.
I just want to add, I need y'all to understand, this is not incompetence. This was planned. The test subjects, the animal test subjects, almost all of them died. And then they said, okay, it's perfect for America. I need y'all to look up Agenda 21, when over 170 United officials said they're for the population. Agenda 2030 is their goal to kill off as many people so they can get rid of poverty. This is all planned. Bill Gates had an Agenda 21 party where he was giving out coronavirus teddy bears right before they released this. I need you to understand, this is not incompetence. They could play stupid all they want. This was planned. Depopulation. This is not an accident.
I disagree.
No, it's in the paperwork. You can look it up.
Though.
I'm just saying, it could be looked up. Look up Agenda 21. I'm not lying.
I think the whole vaccination thing was just a way to control everybody's lives. If you don't get vaccinated, you can't work. If you get vaccinated, you can't work in Hollywood, so I got vaccinated. But I just think it was something to control everybody. I don't know.
Yeah. Thank you.
Look, I could see some of the conspiracy theories, but when very few people actually died, I know, but when very few people actually died.
1 billion people died.
But from the vaccine, 1 billion people died from the
From
vaccine.
COVID and the vaccine, 1 billion people died.
A 1 billion,
A billion people died.
from
Look it
from
up.
the
Yes.
vaccine, though.
Have you heard of VAERS?
I thought you were referring to the vaccine was
Both.
actually.
The whole scamdemic, 1 billion people died, and it was planned. It was population control. You can track the serial numbers on the vials, and the rumor on the street, okay, when we were deep in this parents' rights movement, was that they were giving partial doses to rich areas like Marin because they don't want to kill off their donor base. It was absolutely controlled. Absolutely, they were experimenting
well,
on
then
us.
why isn't anyone concerned about the rampant H5N1 that's spreading around the globe? I mean, that's way deadlier than COVID would ever be.
I won't even believe it till I see it. The whole thing.
By
is
then,
a
it's
lie.
too late.
It's all fear.
Do you believe that herd immunity can be achieved through widespread vaccination?
It kind of feels like almost like that's where we are now. And I only say that because the pandemic was awful. People, in fact, died. And if you talk about kids, you got to talk about everyone who's under 18. Still a kid, they're a minor. And there are people who were died, who were sick. There are people who spread it. And I feel like now we're in this kind of, people are not as afraid of COVID because they've seen so many people survive it, or they've forgotten how many people died from it. And so I just can't live with a type of distrust that can then also be negligible to let so many people die even.
But would you feel comfortable, let's say, with a vaccine that your child didn't get, knowing that she or he probably won't be affected because of herd immunity, so they don't need to get it?
Yeah, I would say yes now, only because it's, like you said, and if everyone's immune, and I would have less fear, because there's less of a chance that she's going to have a really bad reaction. And I kind of would hope for that in the future. And I think that's why I would keep getting a vaccine, just to kind of boost my immune system and prevent us from being at risk in the future.
The thing that breaks my heart, like, I hear your love for your daughter, but the thing that breaks my heart is that she had a perfect immune system. The vaccines do not boost it. So that is
It in fact
misinformation.
compromises it.
That, from my perspective, hearing you, I'm hearing all the misinformation coming right out of you. You've bought into the misinformation system. And you and I have something really big in common. Our kids are both vaccinated and they're fine. You know, we don't have this experience that these have had, but I just hear that misinformation. I just wanted to share with you on that.
I hear you too. I would say my pushback is, if you have a child that is in good health, we also have a responsibility to protect them, to maintain their good health. And so I can agree to disagree.
Yeah.
But that's my counter
Yeah.
opinion.
I
about
think
it.
we just would do the maintaining of the health different. So.
I have 6, and my youngest 3 aren't vaccinated at all. And let me tell you, those are the healthier children. I have 6, and 3 of them are, 3 of them aren't. The 3 that aren't never get colds, never get sick. They don't have seizures, nothing like that. But the ones that did get vaccinated, also me, I got the chickenpox vaccine when I was little. I had it twice. I almost died of spinal meningitis, and they blamed it on a daycare center. But really, it was around the same time with childhood vaccines. There's more risk of getting a vaccine than your natural immune system. God gave us everything we need to heal ourselves. But fear is what drives most.
Do your kids all have the same genetics?
Not necessarily, but at the same time, I have a lot of friends that had teen pregnancies even. I have so many friends that have kids, and I've seen healthy kids get the DTaP, drop dead. It's not just a happen once in the blue. This is something that's happened over and over and over and over.
Yeah, thank you so much for sharing that. Pharmaceutical companies should be held legally accountable for adverse vaccine reactions. Okay, we all agree on that one.
Finally. I'm just kidding.
Yes.
Okay, what would accountability look like to you?
Well, first of all, we should be able to sue them, and we should know about those results. Those shouldn't be buried. There should absolutely be transparency with risk. You know, not all babies are born with the same immune system. Not all of them are full-term babies. Some of them have dispositions from genetics. And different ethnicities and races might have different dispositions. There should never be a one-size-fits-all for all children.
I agree. And just on that point, so as you're a lawyer, and as you know, you cannot sue for any vaccine injuries. And what that essentially has done is stifled innovation within the industry. Because when you have a government protectionism, you stifle growth, you stifle innovation. And so originally I had thought my injury was vaccine related, and I entered into the federal claims court. So that is the system you go through to actually sue, because you can't sue the manufacturer, you can only sue the US government. So I went through the federal claims process. It is extremely biased. It takes about 10 years. And they dig at everything, and at the end of the day, they said, "Oh, you're just crazy. It wasn't the vaccine. You're nuts. It's all psychological," ignoring all of my medical records with positive lab results. So it's a completely flawed and biased system, and it stifles innovation, and it needs to end.
Have you ever seen a case where they were able to take accountability in that court that you
No,
went to?
federal claims, you can never take accountability. And, I've worked in law for many years, and it's that entire area of law, the federal claims process, has kind of been turned into a factory machine profit making for attorneys, because they just find anyone. They're like, "Oh, did you have a vaccine injury?" And they pump you through the federal claims process, knowing that even if you lose, they're going to make hundreds of thousands of dollars off of you. So like my attorneys probably made like $500,000. Meanwhile, I spent 10 years being dragged through the mud. The US government and the judge literally found the most damaging things in my medical records that had absolutely nothing to do with the vaccine damage, put it at the front of the record. Like I had bulimia as a kid. She put it in the front of the record to embarrass me and discourage anyone else from filing a federal claim. It's disgusting what the US government has done with the vaccine program.
Mila was a young girl in college. She was in medical school going to be a surgeon, and she was required by the school to get a vaccine. Her mom took her to CVS. She fell to the ground within 5 minutes. Afterwards, she couldn't walk. She was like, she could not walk. She ended up becoming, a youth activist. And she just did a podcast that now she's terminal. She's never going to be a surgeon. She's never going to be a doctor. So I don't know if money can compensate that family. I don't know what the answer is for that.
But if you don't have the government protecting pharmaceutical companies and they're actually liable for these injuries, what's going to happen is you're going to start seeing a pattern of certain people who are filing cases, and maybe then we can figure out, is there a certain population of people that are more susceptible, right? Because I'm like half French, for example, and half Persian. Maybe something in those genetics makes me more susceptible than it would someone else. So I think it's going to, one, bring accountability, two, it's going to bring innovation, and three, it's going to help answer these questions as to why certain people are more prone to having vaccine injuries. And then when you get to discovery, when you get to discovery in these court cases, we can actually, that's why they're protecting them, because when we get to discovery and we get to open up the pharmaceutical companies' records, that's where we're going to see the most damning information, and that's why they're protecting them.
Pfizer's been sued and never cured anything in the last 175 years. Look up the Pfizer lawsuits, and they still, I'm telling you, they had so many lawsuits against them. They've never cured anything in the 175 years that they've been in business.
But nothing for vaccines, right? No lawsuits against them.
No, they had lawsuits. Look it up. Look it up.
Was this before the program?
It was before the COVID,
program.
but they still trusted them after to create a vaccine, after they've already damaged so many people before.
It's money.
I have a question for you. Since you had an experience with your child, what was the process like after you found out that was it your son?
My son.
Your son was displaying these behaviors. Did you try to gain any sort of...
Well, one of my friends noticed a change because her son had the same symptoms. So she came over. I said, "I need you to come over. We just need to talk about Ali." She's like, "Okay." She came. She was like, "He has autism." I said, "How do you know?" She said, "He's not talking." She started telling me all the stuff that her son went through. And I was like, "Okay, cool." And it was around the same age that she noticed that her son had autism, like between 2 and 3. So I said, "Okay." So then she was like, "You need to do this, you need to do that." She just told me like everything to do. But put him in school like right now. And I was like, okay. And that's what I did. I just put him in school. But it was just really bad. It was like he wasn't potty trained. He was just like a whole different child.
Did you try to reach out to your team, your medical team? Did you try to sue? Did you try to do anything to get any kind of...
No, I didn't. I didn't do it because I feel like a lot of it felt like it was on my fault because I asked him to do all the vaccinations at once. So I kind of like blamed myself. So I was like, no, I didn't call anybody.
Can I ask a question? Do most of you know about the vaccine program? Like, did you ever think to go and actually file a claim?
No, but
No,
it's
okay.
because my mother, she was one of the sheep that just went with everything. Me, I actually studied the history from the Great Depression on how Rockefeller corrupted the medical system. My mom's like, that's not for me. I don't want to hear it. It scares me. Leave me alone. But I took the time to study history because I felt something was off of my spirit. And that's why I started digging deep and finding books up until the 1800s saying that we never needed them. It was created to separate consciousness from spirituality. And the reason why they decreased through the years is because our hygiene increased. At one point, our ancestors, not all ancestors, but at one point it was said that people would take a bath like once a year. Way back in the day. So a lot of these illnesses were people were more susceptible to illness because the hygiene wasn't quite there yet. And as we became more civilized people, the illnesses weren't as more prevalent because they were actually taking baths and washing ass.
So what did you do with your son when that happened? How did you reach out in terms of the medical system? And
I spoke to several doctors, and it was when I looked on the black box and I made them start looking at it. And I made them like, hey, tell me this isn't what the cause is. If he hasn't got anything else, if he's had every like they couldn't lie because I had an ultrasound every single appointment up to that. He was perfect.
so what did they do?
So they basically apologized and acknowledged what I said, and they stopped pressing vaccines. One of his doctors said, oh, if you don't get vaccines, you can't come here because other kids won't be safe. I said, well, if your vaccines are safe and effective, your patients should be safe. You don't have nothing to worry about. So they tried to scare me into giving him more, and I said, no, I'm absolutely not. You're not going to put him at any more risk.
So can I ask why you didn't file a claim?
Because it was my word
You
against.
didn't know about it.
No, I know about it, but
okay.
they say, oh, it could be this, it could be genetics. They try to poke and prod and say it's this, that, and the third, but a mother knows. If you follow your intuition, you can feel things, and I just knew something was off.
So did you feel bullied by them in a way? Or
My
intimidated?
husband was like, oh, they said it would prevent blood clots, just do it. And I'm like, no, I don't. Like, I had an uneasy feeling, but I just listened to him. Okay, whatever he said, but I didn't never hear the vitamin K. With my oldest two children, they never offered it. So all I hear, oh, it's a vitamin, it's okay, it's safe. The doctor said it's safe and effective. And then it wasn't until after he got injured that I started digging into the ingredients of all vaccines.
And the next prompt is, schools should allow unvaccinated children to attend.
No, they should not. I don't want my son to get sick, and he has pretty recently. But what scares me as a parent is there are sometimes underlying health conditions that we can't control. Like he has asthma, he has specific allergies. So things like that, if he were to get COVID or the flu or a virus or RSV was going around, he ended up getting sick from, I would assume, another child there who went to school sick, or they weren't vaccinated, or they didn't get the flu shot, whatever the case. And his throat started to close up. I used his inhaler, I used his medication, and I had to drive him to the ER because I'm like, all right, he could drop dead because another parent wasn't responsible and they either are not keeping up with their health records, they're just busy and they have to work and they're taking their kids to school, but they're not thinking about the other kids there. And so to me, that just shows a lack of responsibility if somebody has that thought. Like a couple of my siblings have kids and they've chosen to homeschool because they are completely anti-vax, like very hardcore about it, and they want to do their own thing, and that's fine. Like people can do that, but they shouldn't expose other people to that harm if that's the case.
What about personal freedom to be able to do what you want to do?
I mean, we live in America, so we do have a lot more choices than other countries, but I think within reason. Like if I were sick, I wouldn't want to go to work and infect everyone else. If I work in an office where I'm required to have a vaccine, I'm either going to quit and find a different job and work remote, or I'm going to choose to go along with it and honor their wishes and be respectful and get the vaccine and go back in. It's my choice, but I'm not going to lie about it and go in and hurt other people because I want to do my own thing.
It's a social contract kind of thing. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I said yes because it's a slippery slope. We don't know if we let the government control who can go to school for what reason, then they could just add 1 million vaccines. They won't, but it is a slippery slope. On that note, though, we do pay taxes, but we don't have the authority to decide where we lay roads and different things in our society. So I do think that that argument of I pay taxes, I should send my kid to school, you do have the option to homeschool. So I do feel like the government has the right, but it also is a slippery slope. So I have to say, no,
So
I
if
don't
you
think they
had a-
should.
You don't think that the government should?
I don't because of the slippery slope, but I go back and forth. I'm mixed on that topic, and I also think when you vaccinate your child, you should trust that it protects them.
So if you
That's why
had
you
a
did
child
it.
that was in, let's say, elementary school, and another child got them sick by something that could have been prevented by a vaccine, how do you think you would feel in that situation?
Were they vaccinated? Like if you're
They were not.
Like if was my child vaccinated, and so an unvaccinated child got my unvaccinated child sick. I would just probably. I mean, honestly, my daughter, we're going back and forth with the MMR right now because and I have the pressure from news stations and things to get it next week. And I had a scare. She had scarlet fever a few weeks ago, and I thought it was measles, and the doctor thought she had pneumonia, and she would be patient 0. And I had this moment where I was like, oh my gosh, I let this happen. Because I still have anxiety, and I have in-laws and situations that are anti-vax, so I thought, oh, it's too late. So I'd feel terrible. I would have all that guilt. I've had a lot of anti-vax moms reach out now that we can't count on herd immunity in Texas, and they're like, I'm ready to do the vaccine.
So there's a Karina Powers, Latinos for Medical Freedom. She cannot send her kids to school because she does not vaccinate. And before that happened, she sent her little daughter, Emma, to school, and all the kids had been vaccinated for measles or mumps. I forget which one. She did not get sick at all. They got each other sick. Once you measle and mump your kid, the MMRs, you are giving it to them, and it's like this manufactured disease keeps going. And she had a perfectly healthy immune system, was fine. So I respectfully suggest to you guys, it's a myth in your head. Kids have the most beautiful, powerful immune systems in the world. We just gotta feed them healthy food, let them sleep, right? Love them, and they'll be fine. No child transmitted COVID. It's all propaganda. It's just fear. I just want to hug you guys
No,
so
but
bad.
the thing is,
That's the
it's not,
misconception.
because I was very holistic before this. I fed him a perfect diet. Like, I bought the most expensive food from a farmer's market, like all organic, everything. And that there's certain things that we need modern medicine to help with, because whatever it is, where I don't know where it's coming from, it seems like it's coming from other countries. Like, I've traveled the world and I've seen that they have diseases there that we don't even have here. So we're at least fortunate to have the option to have that solution.
Can I respond to that?
Hold on, I would like to hear from someone on this side.
I do think that's one of the misconceptions, that if a child's not vaccinated, they are sick, or they are the ones who are at risk to getting everyone else sick, when it's quite the opposite. Now, I can't speak for every case. You said your son has allergies too. So there might be other factors contributing to him having a weaker immune system that have nothing to do with whether or not other children are vaccinated. When I was a child of the 80s, we would have chickenpox parties. And if you got chickenpox, you didn't need the vaccine. In fact, pediatricians at that time encouraged that because they believed in the child's natural, strong immune system. Vaccines were not the first choice, and we have lost that. Dr. Fauci not one time looked into the camera to the American people and said, go get some vitamin D, go outside in the sun, decrease your sugar intake. In fact, you saw the opposite. Here, get a donut if you get the vaccine. We are purposely not empowering parents and children to boost our own amazing immune system. And Big Pharma has an agenda, and it's working, that as long as we make the family scared, they will get our vaccines.
Going back to the prompt, because I want to go back to the prompt, do you think that the schools, and you can answer this if you want, do you think that the schools should inform parents about the vaccination rates in the child's classroom? Do you think that parents should be informed of that?
No.
Well, I know you guys don't think so, but yes.
Vaccinations is not the only thing to keep your child healthy. I don't know why we believe that in America.
Study
Do you
shows
In
think-
China, they don't do all that pharmaceutical, all those pills. We only do that in America. They drink tea.
So my question is, for the four of you, if there was a vaccine schedule and a formulation of a vaccine that you believed in, would you vaccinate your
It
kids?
depends on the
Never.
risk. It depends on the risk.
Even if it was
Never.
something where it's a completely new formulation, it was safe, it was a patch, it wasn't
Turtle
injectable.
all the way down. Turtle all the way down. Read the book. None of the currently scheduled FDA-approved vaccines went through proper studies. No way, no.
But if they did, if they met all of the milestones that you're looking for, but I'm just saying hypothetical. So what I'm trying to get at is there ever going to be a safe vaccine? Even if you helped make...
What's the disease?
The gentleman I mentioned earlier, the vaccine that raises your T cells that fights the bad, that I would consider. That's
Okay,
it.
I love that. I think
Yeah.
that's actually a great idea. If it was one vaccine like that could mount a defense against most viruses, would you be open to something
If
like
I have
that?
if I have 6 kids, my youngest 3 are unvaccinated. They've never been sick, and I have a son with $20,000 in hospital bills. I'm not gonna go say, my kids are perfectly healthy, but let me go risk it like my ancestors have for the last 100 years, and let's go try to get them an illness they haven't had yet, because studies show illnesses are in the vaccinated children. If you actually look at the placebo studies that are coming out now, that they're being released, there's a study that shows vaccinated children are the ones that mostly have autism, the ones that have diabetes, the ones that have asthma. Most of the children, I have premature twins that were born at 34 weeks. I brought them to over 20-something states during COVID, never been sick. So for you to tell me my children can't go to school because they're completely healthy and your child's immune system was affected because you got something put in them, that's not fair.
So 3 of you, if there was a vaccine, kind of what you're referring to, you would potentially vaccinate your children if it was something that you believed in.
Well, if the risks outweighed the not getting the vaccine, but you first have to say what is the disease. Right. There's tons of vaccines that can be created that may be safe, but if the disease itself is not a threat to my child, why would I get a vaccine?
I'm listening to everyone, and I see valid points, but I'm curious because I'm recognizing the privilege I have of living here, and I personally know people who were born in another country, came here because they wanted to get the vaccines, and I know someone who experienced polio because they were born out of the country, and they didn't get here in time to get the vaccine to not get polio, and they live with that. And I think when I hear about charities that talk about how cheap it is to pay for the eye drops to prevent certain eye diseases in another country, then I'm thinking, well, if you were in that situation, would you not want a polio vaccine? Would you not want the eye drops for your child? Or would that change the situation and you would
That
want
would be
to?
an example. Well, polio is certainly fatal. A lot of things like measles, COVID are not. So I'm not extreme. I would be in support of getting the polio vaccine.
I think all of you, as mothers especially, would want the best for your child.
Yes.
Like whatever that looks like. And if you're convinced from the doctor that this is what is the best, I think just your heart would want that, considering that some of you feel so guilty about things that were not even in your control just because you said yes, right? Or you said no. So I think that's something to remember, is that I think at the end of the day, you just want what's best. It's just kind of hard to trust, which leads me to the next prompt. I have spent more than 50 hours researching vaccines on my own. Okay, so kind of a mixed batch. So let's hear from you.
I haven't researched any vaccines, but I know when I got the COVID vaccination, I have not been the same. I get sick so easy now. Before, I used to get sick every 3 years. I used to count it. Oh, this is the 3rd year I'm sick. Now, every time somebody coughs around me, I'm sick. I'm like, this is not good. But what I do, I just drink tea. I always drink tea. Ginger tea.
So you're someone who trusted.
I trust tea.
You just trust. You don't do research.
No.
You just trust. And you think that's part of the reason why you felt a little bit of
No, I
guilt?
got vaccinated way after everybody else did.
No, with your son. Do you think that's why you may have felt guilt because you didn't do any research and you just kind of said yes to the doctors?
Well, because my other 2 kids never had any reaction from the vaccinations.
I see. Okay.
So yeah, so I just let him get them, but he didn't react the same way. So
That makes sense.
Research got me into becoming anti-vax originally, but research also got me out, and that's what I held on to when I got my daughter's first vaccine. I thought aluminum would slip through the blood-brain barrier. I found out babies are born with an intact blood-brain barrier, and then you have aluminum. You go to the method section, guaranteed the aluminum found in brains, it's never the vaccine aluminum, it's always environmental aluminum. You have polysorbate 80. Oh, and it's not fat soluble. It's too big to slip through the blood-brain barrier. Polysorbate 80 is supposed to be a Trojan horse. That was the anti-vax argument. That comes from a study that shows you need 3,600 doses injected straight into the carotid to have a chance at opening up the blood-brain barrier. Holding those facts was what got me through her vaccine. I had a panic attack, but I knew, like, okay, she's fine. These are facts.
And where are you getting this research from? Are there like peer-based review? Like, how are you finding what you're consuming and as truth?
I started talking to scientists and doctors, like a blood-brain barrier specialist, a scientist in Australia, another doctor. I reached out to Dr. Offit, and he's just the sweetest man. Like, he doesn't want to see kids die.
He's a great guy. Yeah.
And
he's really good. I know you guys don't think that, but he's really genuinely a good guy.
I was like, if he wouldn't, he's not going to recommend for my daughter what he wouldn't recommend for his own kids and grandchildren.
That's the propaganda. The doctors stand there and say, if they're a grandfather or a father, they'd say, well, I would give it to my child. That's the propaganda. That's manipulation.
I have a list of at least 10 anti-vax. I tried to get an anti-vax doctor on the show here, but for whatever reason, she wasn't selected or wasn't put on. But I literally, Dr. Naomi Wolf, Dr. Robert Malone, Dr. Ryan Cole, there's Dr. Pham, there's Dr. Saeed. There's at least 10, 15 doctors that have studies that speak out because they don't want to be a part of the corruption anymore.
So you have read their articles, or you're
yes,
talking
I read
to,
the
you
articles
talked to
and
them?
the studies. There's literally a study that shows vaccinated versus unvaccinated kids when it comes to asthma, autism, all the illnesses across the board, childhood cancer, everything you could think of. There's studies, but people just go with what couple doctors make them feel good, opposed to, I look at everything. Doctors that are pro-vaccine, anti-vaccine, and I compare and contrast. I don't just go, okay, this person anti-vax, I'm gonna just follow them blindly because I don't like them and I don't trust the history. I look at the pro-vax doctors as well. But the studies don't match up. A lot of them are fabricated.
The studies you speak of, do you know if they're underpowered? Meaning, do you know how large the sample size was? Was it enough to actually be statistically relevant?
I have it in my phone, but like, I can't
I'm just curious
because
both sides use they use the sample size to kind of get the results they want. So both sides will do that. So that's why I'm just curious. Like, was the sample size large enough to be statistically relevant?
I believe.
Okay.
And what about social media? If you are on social media, do you think that social media has done more to divide mothers on this topic, or unite? Why don't you go ahead?
It's so heavily censored. So around the time of COVID, I was told I had to get the vaccine in order to travel. I didn't get it for the longest, and then I actually filmed myself getting it. I posted a video. It got a bunch of views, and then on Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, like every social media platform, it got flagged, it got removed. It was like, they did not want that information out there.
Anything vaccine related, they censor.
They
Good
do.
or bad,
No, but
all platforms
the
pull
whole
it down.
Facebook
it's
had,
crazy.
get vaccinated and did you get your vaccine? Like, people had their profile pictures with that.
But they were suppressing pro-vaccine stuff too. It's so bizarre.
I never saw it.
They
I
paid
saw them.
fact checkers probably billions. Like I posted Dr. Robert Malone's study on Facebook, automatically 30 days in ban. My TikTok got taken down. Everything I posted, I had a friend, she posted, look this doctor up, military Dr. Teresa Long. She spoke about how spontaneous abortion increased 300% in the military after the mandates. My friend posted this. Right after that, she went to the hospital. They forced her to get the vaccine. She died. You can look her up. On the vaccine injury website, I had her portrait painted. My grandmother also died. Never smoked, never drank, never ate a lot of sugar, was completely healthy. And that's just two of many people. I'm not gonna get into the whole list of people I know that were injured. My uncle's wife had a stroke. She's completely healthy, early 30s. There's people that's getting Bell's palsy. There's so many different possibilities. It just, some people luck out. And also the batches vary. there might be some of one thing and another and vice versa. Not every single batch has the set amount of
That's
material.
a good point. There was the Johnson & Johnson vaccine was the deadliest one that they came out with. And the reason behind that was, so I used to work in biotech. I believe they should have used the lentivirus. I think they used the adenovirus. But one of the two viruses, when you try to use that as a delivery mechanism, it causes severe immune reactions. And so Johnson & Johnson used the incorrect viral delivery system, and that's what caused a large amount of reactions and death. And again, they're protected, so they can never have been sued for any of those harm. Johnson & Johnson got off the hook with injuring and potentially killing several people and never had to pay a penny for that. So I will agree, because every scientist that I talked to about the Johnson & Johnson vaccine, they all shook their heads like, why would they have used that viral delivery mechanism? Everyone in biotech knows you do not use that.
And AstraZeneca too, I think.
Did they have
pulled that one?
I
They
think,
pulled
yeah,
that one.
I think I remember hearing that.
But
Sorry.
going back to your point, if social media, which should be our outlet to be able to talk about these things, if every post is flagged, when you have to purposely change the language, specifically on TikTok, you say the vaccine, you're gone. You have to say the jab or schmovid vaccine. Like you had to I mean, yeah, exactly. And when you do that, and when you see actual MDs losing their platform, like Dr. Peter McAuliffe-Malone and all of those, and Simone Gold, and how do you have that trust? Obviously, they are stigmatizing people who question the vaccine. I mean, even the president at the time, Biden, said it's the pandemic of the unvaccinated, meaning it's all of the unvaccinated's fault, which couldn't be further from the truth, because people who got the vaccine were still getting it and giving it.
I can see where we probably all agree, where we can't completely trust social media if it's not like fact checked, or even if it's fact checked, who's fact checking. But I will say, like, there's always going to be some truth out there, whether it's on social media or not. And I think there's going to be people who are just putting false information out there. So I wouldn't completely ever depend on social media, and I don't have a complete trust in social media. So I just think that it's going to be up to me at the end of the day, however I decide.
Do you believe that vaccine side effects are underreported or dismissed by the medical community?
I would think so. Just like any other statistic, where we were mentioning sample sizes, and I think we're really referring to skewed data. Like, I know if it's money motivated, if it's related to capitalism, unfortunately, and I totally agree about this, like pharmaceutical industries compromising quality of health for people. And I think that from a marketing perspective, it would be more difficult to get buy-in if they're going to be more sincere about the information about there, and it's more profitable.
Did you do research before giving vaccines to your child on each one that was coming up?
So any information that they would provide in advance, I would try to read it, because I am nervous about side effects. I am nervous about the regret of getting my child a vaccine consensually and having to live with the regret of it was my fault that something happened to her. But I also feel like there's also the chance if I didn't get that for her risk of exposure to potentially getting something that could be deadly. So
That's a lot of pressure for
yeah,
you.
it's really difficult.
One way or the other. Have any of you ever been called dangerous or reckless or anything negative for simply asking questions or wanting variations with the vaccines?
Yes, I mean, the hardest one for me, oh, I'm sorry.
No, you didn't need that.
Oh, we didn't, okay. The hardest one for me was when it came from my own daughter, because she was like, Mom, you're being so selfish. I can't go with my friends because you're being stupid. You're being selfish. You're not letting me be, right? Because all of her friends were vaccinated and were shaming her, and then were vilifying me.
We heard that word a lot.
Even in
selfish.
your own home, you have to stand up to propaganda, and it's especially when your child is the victim of this.
I'm told that I want my child to die if I get the measles shot next week. I've heard that a lot, that I just hope that she dies, and that's crazy.
I would never wish that.
They're saying that I hope that she dies if I get
Don't
it.
recommend you getting it, but I would never say that to you. That's hurtful and hateful.
It wasn't really the vaccine, it was the masks. The superintendent called the sheriffs on me and 8 cops showed up. So I'm a domestic terrorist.
For not wanting to wear a mask?
I never wore a mask, yeah.
They called, wow, where do you live?
Carmel.
Oh, okay,
Yeah,
well,
in
there you
Blue,
go.
Carmel.
Carmel's very
you know,
strict.
my daughter was a teenager and they don't want to be weird, right? So she there's no way I'd have killed her if she tried to get the vaccine, but we did go, she went to a school thing on the East Coast, and they wanted her to test, and I wasn't letting my family use the COVID test either. And so we go into this, you should see her, she was white. She was horrified. And so they give us the test and they let us go in the bathroom. And so we shut the door and she tries to give herself the test, right? The COVID test. And I'm like, no, just stick it in the toilet, put in the thing, and then walk out there.
I've seen some positive like that.
Oh, that's a good thought. Yeah, yeah, definitely. I was a domestic terrorist. And even, like you said, in our own home. And then my daughter got a conservative religious boyfriend, and all of a sudden, I was lovely. Yes.
What about on the side? Have any of you been called anything or made to feel a certain way because you asked questions or you wanted something done differently than what's normal?
I've never been called outrageous, but I think I've been called opinionated. I've been, I think everyone maybe can relate to that. But I do think, like, I've had to push myself to have the courage to ask questions. I think it's really easy to become dismissive or complacent. And I also think that society is trying to socialize everyone to be a certain way. So I would say I'm in support of being resistant and questioning everything. Absolutely. But there's just some things I'm accustomed to and I agree with. So that's kind of where I fall.
You know what, of all the most hateful comments and derogatory things I've ever had come at me, it's all from the pro-vaccine movement. So I don't even know why I still stand by it, because they're like the most aggressive, angry people. And it's like, if you don't believe in what they believe in, you're out. And so I try so hard to stay on this side because I believe in the science, I know the science, but I know there is truth to what these ladies are saying. So I still want to be on the pro side and fight for it as much as I can, but taking what they say and try to make it work. But yeah, the people on the pro-vaccine side, especially the real powerful influencers and scientists and doctors, for lack of better words, they're assholes, and they just treat people horribly. I'm sorry, it's true, they are. They treat people they look down on you, and they don't respect your intelligence or your ability to actually do deductive reasoning, and that's why everybody hates them. It's because they treat women like you, a lawyer, like smart women, they treat them like you're an idiot. That's not true. These are smart women here. They have valid concerns, and you dismissing them makes nobody want to be pro-vaccine. But here I am, standing for the science because I believe in it.
Thank you. Okay, so I know you mentioned that you would be very upset with your daughter if she went ahead and got the vaccine, right? But if she is an adult, let's say she turned 18 and decided she was going to get it, what would your thoughts be, or how would that affect your relationship?
You have another child. I don't know how many of you have 18-year-olds, but in the medical system now, they don't talk to me anymore. Oh. And when you go to that transition, it's like the world has fallen. But the truth of the matter is she's 18 and she gets to do what she wants. My daughter happens to be 19 and she's moved away and she's coming home and I'm so excited. But I would, so we're conservative. She's in social media, so she's more not, but she listens and we've built a dialogue. So I would hope that I've done a good enough job to get her to listen to me. My husband's a ski instructor and we go to Arnold. I don't know if you guys are familiar with this. And we go to this one little restaurant and this mom, new owner, pulled out her phone and she showed me the clot, the long, snaky blood clot thing that came out of her son from the COVID shot, right? And she was so pained that she couldn't stop him from doing it. She knew that was gonna happen. So, but I mean, we just have to let go. I don't know. I would have to trust her at this point, and it would have to trust that I raised her as a, well, kind of thing.
It'd be her decision. I think something that can happen oftentimes in the medical field and even in education is that people look to doctors and whoever's in authority as having more knowledge and being the authority, even if you're older than them. And sometimes just having a presence, such a strong presence of someone being a professional, can sometimes make people just automatically go with what they say and feel too scared to ask a question or push back because it's almost like you're talking back to your mom or something. And I think that oftentimes can stop people from getting the information that they need. It's just that intimidation.
Have you heard that study where they did a doctor in a white coat kind of thing, and they had people in another room, and some of you might know about this, and they pushed something where it sounded like they were screaming. It sounded like they're screaming. I'm not going to say it right, but the end of the study was 2/3 of the people would turn their neighbors in and not stop that just because the doctor in the white coat was telling him not to, right? Like the Nazi Germany thing. Like 1/3, and was it the World War? 1/3 is going to fight. I was the fighters. 1/3 is going to go along, and 1/3 is going to, not. So yeah, it's
Just the presence of the white coat.
Of the white coat. Yeah.
And I think that's a big thing.
And if you just bring that example to our modern times, when you would see people in LA, especially, driving by themselves with a mask on, with the windows up, or when people got arrested for being in an open park on a bench without a mask,
Or on the beach.
we've lost our minds. I mean, this has nothing to do with the science. There's no way you are contagious, and you're not being anyone's hero with a mask in a car with the windows up. So
Well, it's become
that's
an
blind
identity
compliance.
now.
That's blind compliance because
It's become
Dr. Fauci,
no, it's become an identity. It's become
Yeah,
like a
virtue
movement.
signaling.
Exactly. It has
Yeah.
nothing to do with actual science. It's just
Yeah.
I stand for this,
Yeah.
and you're going to listen to me because you see it.
Right.
It's almost to antagonize people. Yeah, it is, because if you see somebody in their Prius by themselves with a mask on, you're going to be like, it's always a Prius driver.
So the final prompt is, I believe that there should be more compassion and less shame in conversations about vaccines and motherhood. Okay.
I think it's been so great to hear everyone's perspective and their personal stories on this, and we're all here together, and this is just wonderful, and I wish people could communicate more openly like this.
Why do you think, I know you talked about there just being so much tension about this particular topic on both sides. Why do you think people are so overly, in some ways, passionate about the topic of vaccines?
There's a lot of money involved. And I hate to say it's on the anti-vaccine side too. So if you look at, like, I know people like RFK. I'm on the fence about him. But if you look at his nonprofit, he raised millions and millions and millions of dollars for it. So did Jenny McCarthy, but not a single one of them put any money towards studying why vaccine reactions or finding better vaccine formulations. Like if I had $23 million, I would have taken that and found a better pharmaceutical formulation, worked with ladies like these and tried to figure out how can we make vaccines safe? How can we find a T-cell vaccine? But not one of these anti-vaxxers did that. And conversely, you have pharmaceutical companies doing nothing. They're using technology from 70 years ago for vaccines, and then they keep pumping it out. Now there's 50, 60 vaccines. It's screwed up on both sides, but there's so much money on both sides. That's why they want us divided, because if we sat and talked to each other, we would find the solution.
I was kind of kicked out of the anti-vax community just because I believed in wearing a mask, and so I was kind of adopted into the pro-vax community, and I had just said yes to tetanus because I was scared of tetanus, getting the shot, and the news picked it up and said, she turned pro-vax. And I was like, oh, okay, I guess I'm pro-vax. And it just kind of spiraled. And then I saw that she was fine after she got several shots. And then I was super hated by the anti-vax community. But then I one time said that healthy food was good for you on Facebook. And then the pro-vax community turned on me. Yeah.
So this is like a real community, like real people?
Oh yeah, you're all in one side or all in the other, and that's your identity. You can't be either, and it's a virtue. I feel like it's so lacking compassion because it's a virtue signaling. Like, I care about my kid more than y'all do. I'm sorry.
Well, it's also political. Like, we know where you stand if you wear a mask or don't wear a mask, right?
Yeah,
Like,
it's
we know everything
political.
about you.
It shouldn't be political.
Right.
I want her to live. She almost died when she was a baby before she was vaccinated, and doctors didn't believe me. And I dressed as the measles one time for Halloween. So it just, I was just, in that, when I was an anti-vaxxer, I thought, oh, well, that's acting like I'm afraid of it, which I'm not. And I wrote, I was trying to think of the least scary thing I could be, so I became the measles, and it just went viral. That's when I discovered Reddit that day. My brother was like, get off, save the family name. But I got this following, and it was really cool to finally have moms that believed me. I finally got a doctor to believe me, and she was saved. She was fine. He believed me and saved her. And then it was really hurtful to feel like, okay, I'm not all in that community, so they hate me. I mean, they would form groups online. I mean, I went to the ER with a panic attack one time. And so when I was kicked out, I was like, I don't have a group because I'm not all or nothing. And so when the Pro-Vax community kind of adopted me in, and I saw she was fine, and I just kind of went with it. They were so warm and inviting because there's so many good, solid people on both sides. Some of my best friends are still anti-vax. I love my pro-vax friends and doctors and scientists I've met. They're incredible people. And so it's hard to say. It just sucks that we have to be all in, one or the other, like Dr. Offit. Like, he loves his kids and his grandkids. And I believe him when he says something's okay for my daughter. And we just think that, well, if they're on this side, they are Satan. I remember when I was stuck in the elevator with Dr. Pan, not stuck, but for a second I realized, I said, I'm sorry, I used to think you were the Antichrist. He laughed, and like we bonded. It was great. And people just are people at the end of the day, and I don't think they should be in either box because it removes compassion.
Well, I was just going to say really quick, I think a lot of people are used to trying to other. Like, we're into the othering, forming these groups of like, I don't agree with you and I couldn't agree with you and you're part of the other. And I don't think it's fair. And I think what you described about your experience, it's not fair to you if people don't even know you personally and that you weren't trying to do anything wrong. And I think even like the conversation we're having today, if people could just be more authentic and empathetic, to not be so quick to judge or try to crucify someone, we could find a middle ground. Because I saw validity in what some of you are saying, and I really don't agree with some of the things you're saying, but I don't hate anybody. I see everyone's opinion is valid, but I can agree to disagree completely.
I wanted to say that during the Great Depression, that's when Rockefeller agreed to fund the medical school and the education system. So for the last 100 years, our ancestors, people above us, they just went with what they're taught and they just passed it over, the same knowledge over and over. It's up to us to question everything. You can't just go with one fits all because science is always changing, always evolving, and you're not doing yourself any justice by just agreeing with what anybody says. As a community as a whole, we should all, no matter what side you're on, question everything.
So quick question, what happens then in a situation where the government finds that there's some pandemic, there's some issue going on? What should they do? Let's just say they didn't create it. Let's just say. 1918. Or even if they did. What should they do to be able to get something out there quickly that can help people while they're still obviously experimenting?
Ivermectin was in existence, and they suppressed it because they needed there to be no other solution to COVID so that they could get their emergency use authorization. And that's the only way they could get it out into the public. It's money. Yeah. So
what should they do then? Like
just the ivermectin would have been great. Let people wash their hands. Go home if they're sick. That's it.
I mean, but I think she means like 1918, because there's no way 1918 was planned.
You're talking about the Spanish flu?
Yes, the Spanish flu.
Yeah, actually it was. Nobody ever died from the Spanish flu. They died from bacterial pneumonia from wearing the mask and the vaccines. Nobody ever died, and the Spanish flu originated in America, and it's patented.
The virus is what created the inflammation in the lungs to allow an opportunity.
Let me explain something to you. Just like 5G was released during COVID, or during that time, during Spanish flu, it was either 1G or 2G. I can't remember which one. But look it up. 1G or 2G was released during the same time as the Spanish flu. It's often, 1G? I won't say, oh wait, it was 1G. I couldn't remember it was
during
1 or 2G.
the Spanish flu in 1918, when they only had single passenger planes.
Look it up, honey. I'm telling you.
Oh, okay.
Just like 5G was
I'm just-
introduced during the same time as
like, I
COVID.
didn't think
Look it
You
up.
know, I almost, it's back to your point of bringing people together. When the scamdemic hit, I had dreams that it was a fight between good and evil, and I just chose good. That's what I did. Really, I was just following God's plan. And I fought so hard, and I was so alone because I live in Carmel that I almost tried to kill myself. And my daughter saw me in a dark place. I was so alone. So just being here with you ladies, and just having this moment of time is magic. And we really, I mean, I thank you. I really thank you for just bringing these viewpoints together, because now I'm going to go home and have a glass of wine and feel happy, right?
Well,
You know?
I think we
'Cause
need
connected.
we need a nonprofit that's not pro or anti, but it's both.
It's
and we
information.
Work, yes, and we work
It's
together.
pro-curiosity and questions
Right.
and solutions,
Yes.
because
Right.
we're all
Yes.
moms.
But it's checks and
Yes.
balances of both sides, so that the correct information, public knows it's getting out there because it's got both sides checking.
Thank you. So ladies, I just want to thank you for being here today, and thank you for saying that. I'm so thankful that you were able to share your thoughts in a safe space and do it in such a respectful way with the conversation that can be so heated sometimes. Is there anything that you learned today, or maybe a perspective that you had never considered, or something that someone said that touched you that you would like to share?
Yeah, I think us having this dialogue is going to show the entire world that it doesn't need to be divisive. We can work together, and we can find common ground, and we can make this better for everyone, especially the children.
My heart goes out to the real stories I've heard from people about what they went through. And so it has me questioning a little more now about vaccines. So I think my heart is more open to understanding the other side.
Y'all got me stressed out.
Just gonna go back to the other side.
I just think, mama bears are amazing. And when we realize that we have so much more in common than what we don't, and if we can just get curious about the other side, and things are a lot more nuanced than social media and media lets us believe, we can move mountains together. Because I know in this conversation alone, we've already had so much common ground. And it's shows like this that really promote this response to this anti-polarization culture that I think a lot of people are getting tired of.
I struggle with coming here to say what I said today. I was like, I really don't want to talk about this, because sometimes it's like a lot of people feel like that's not true, or like they want to argue my opinion with their opinion, or that didn't happen to my child. But all children are different. And I've seen the changes in my son. I still see him struggling to this day with stuff like reading and learning and keeping up with other kids, and only wanting to be in his own world. So I know it's from the vaccination. So
I'm glad your voice was heard, because it is heard. No one's dismissing what happened to you, and I am really sorry that you experienced that.
I just want to add one thing. Also, I know you add our handles at the end. If anybody wants to see the studies that I have, because I can't clearly put them on a PowerPoint and show, I'll be more than happy to share it with you so you can look into it for yourself. You don't have to just necessarily agree with what I say, but you can at least see where I'm coming from and see the information I have to make a final guess for yourself. It's pretty much a guess unless you really investigate.
Thank you, sweetie. Thank you, ladies, for being here today and sharing. I'm so thankful that we're able to have this conversation, and thank you at home for watching. Leave us a comment below and let us know your thoughts and maybe some things that you learned from this conversation. Until next time, bye-bye.